This is a quick addendum to the evolution fraud segment. Back in 1993, scientists at California's Polytechnic State University in San Luis Obispo acquired a 135 million year old fossil of a weevil trapped in amber. And they were able to recover DNA from this specimen, this 135 million year old weevil trapped in amber, back from the dinosaur era. And one segment of DNA was 315 base pairs long, and another one was 226 base pairs long. And they compared the segments with other modern insects, and what they found was the DNA actually did match the modern day weevil. So they have a fossil of a weevil. They recovered 135 million year old DNA from it, and were able to confirm that it is consistent with a modern weevil. Now, back in 1993, finding segments of DNA that long would not have been controversial whatsoever. But back in 2012, there was a very careful study done to determine the half-life of DNA, and this was published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society. And they found that the half-life of DNA is 521 years. And what that would mean is it would take a maximum of 6.8 million years for every bond to be destroyed. And after around only 1.5 million years, the remaining strands of DNA would be too short to be readable at all. So back to the California Polytechnic research back in 1993, where they actually did recover readable DNA from a weevil trapped in amber, and actually was able to match that DNA to the modern weevil. So Houston, we now have an empirical problem. There is no possible way that these dinosaur-era rock layers could be 135 million years old. Based on the half-life of DNA, they could be at a maximum 6.8 million years. And realistically, from what they're saying, only 1.5 million years, because you wouldn't be able to get any readable DNA whatsoever after that amount of time. And they did find readable DNA from the weevil in 135 million year old rock layers. Now, what is really humorous to me is that the scientists there at the University of Sydney, Australia, who confirmed the half-life of DNA, are now saying, well, this confirms our widely held suspicion that the claims about DNA from dinosaurs and ancient insects trapped in amber are incorrect. Remember, Polytechnic University had recovered readable strands of DNA from a weevil in these 135 million year old rock layers and confirmed it and matched it to a modern day weevil. So this exposes their bias. Instead of saying, hey, the dating of those rock layers is wrong, they say, well, the DNA must be wrong. You see, this is called reasoning in a circle. You see, if dinosaur rock layers are only 1.5 million years old, evolution could not possibly be true. And so, since evolution is true, well, the DNA must be wrong, not the dating of the rock layers. I think that's absolutely hilarious. And it really reveals the kind of groupthink, phase-locking mentality going on in the scientific community when it comes to this theory of evolution. They're always going to reason in a circle because they've already concluded that theory must be true in the face of empirical evidence to the contrary. And to be fair and to be serious here, I'm not at all accusing the scientists at Polytechnic University of committing any kind of fraud. I believe they were doing real science, and they actually recovered strands of DNA from a weevil trapped in amber. And I'm not at all accusing the scientists there at Sydney, Australia. They were doing honest science. They calculated the half-life of DNA. The problem is the circular thinking when they're faced with empirical evidence that contradicted the dating of the fossil. They, instead of saying, hey, maybe the dating of these fossils is incorrect, they immediately jumped to the conclusion that, well, it must be the DNA was just an illusion. We really didn't have DNA from ancient weevil. So I'm not having a problem with their science. I think they were doing good, honest science. What I have a problem with is their willingness to immediately run away, reason in a circle, and ignore the obvious implication of what they found. And that is that the dating of these fossils must be incorrect. So I'm going to leave it right there and leave it to you to draw your own conclusions. And I hope the information was useful to you. And thank you for watching.